This episode is brought to you by Resy and American Express. Resy is a digital platform that connects restaurants to restaurant lovers by elevating dining experiences, providing original industry content, and helping to fill some of the country's most exciting dining rooms. Because restaurants have always been more than just places to eat. The amazing world of restaurants is just a few taps away in the Resy app and at resy.com.
This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. Healthcare professionals can lead their careers with LinkedIn. Discover jobs by specialty, preferred shifts, and even desired salary. From mental health therapists to radiology technicians, it's now faster and easier for healthcare professionals to find the right fit. Learn more at linkedin.com/healthcare. Side effects may include faster job placement, improved work-life balance, and increased career satisfaction.
And there are a couple other stories where I kind of get into outlandish food descriptions, like food that should not exist. In my writerly DNA, there's perhaps a experimental side. So, the experimental writers of the Oulipo group in France, like where they would just take kind of irrational things and melt them together.
This is Taste. I'm your host, Matt Rodbard. Today is a really special episode for me in that we dive into two of my great loves, food and fiction. On this episode, I catch up with two authors and journalists I have deep respect for, Ed Park and Jason Diamond. Ed is the author of a terrific new short story collection, An Oral History of Atlantis, and a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize. We talk about the 1990s and his past life working at the Village Voice. And of course, food is at the center of Ed's life, and we talk about his Korean-American household in Buffalo and the modern Korean restaurant scene. Jason Diamond wrote a terrific debut novel, Kaplan's Plot. It's a story set in Chicago in both modern times and the 1920s. And yes, there are gangsters, but also some amazing food scenes too. We get into what drives Jason to write deeply researched scenes that celebrate Chicago's Jewish diaspora. Yes, liverwurst and the classic Chicago hot dog get some ink. I really enjoyed these conversations, and I hope you do too. Ed Park, welcome to This Is Taste. Great to meet you.
Great to finally meet you. I'm a big fan of the show, and it's wonderful to be here.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. I'm a big fan of your fiction, your work in criticism. You worked here at Penguin for a time as an editor. Your career is admirable. I respect it, man.
Thank you. Thanks, Matt.
I love, we're going to talk about the Village Voice era. We're going to talk about your new collection, An Oral History of Atlantis. We're going to talk about Korean food. I mean, you're like the dream guest for me.
my three favorite subjects.
Me too. And you're a dream guest, and it's just really an honor to have you on. I like to always start the show for New Yorkers just to ask, where are you dining out right now, restaurant-wise?
Sure. Well, I was trying to think of places I've been to more than once in the last year or so. We've been going to Sempre Oji in the old Cheska in the 70s. Yeah. Pretty solid. There's a little place called Amelie on the I live on the Upper West Side.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, the last time I went there it was just kind of magical. I was there with two friends, and I saw one of the neighbors from my building. I saw two of their friends, and it was just like this homey.
Hello, neighbor.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah. And where else? So my kids never kind of cottoned to Ethiopian food, but I love Ethiopian food. And, as they're teenagers now, they kind of sometimes go their own way. And so my wife and I have been getting up to, there's a place called Massawa, Ethiopian, up, I think, around 119th. The most memorable, I haven't been here in ages, but this summer, a buddy of mine, Eugene, he lives out in Jersey, works in New York, he had a doctor's appointment in the city, and he was like, let's go to Patsy's, the original, first 119th.
Yeah, the original location uptown, not to be repeated.
Not to be repeated, and so great. We were there for like 3 hours.
Oh, fun.
We had 2 pizzas. We had beer in the middle of the day. It was just like a magical, I knew it would be fun to see him, but like the atmosphere was perfect. Yeah.
I'm getting a sense you're a food guy, but you're a vibes guy, atmosphere guy.
I'm a vibes guy. Yeah, I am a vibes guy.
Yeah, and New York has so many places with just tremendous vibes. I have to ask you about your time at the Village Voice. Yeah. You spent 11 years there as an editor in various other roles, and a legendary place. And for our show, I just like to try to talk about alt weekly publishing and the history of journalism when we can. I'm not going to get really into that, though, to be honest. I want to hear about the food because, when you're down in the East Village working there every day in the office, there's no remote work. There's like great food around. There's interesting food options, and there's also after work drinking.
Yeah.
Ed, tell us about the food culture in the Village Voice.
Well, the food culture. So the first several years that I was there, I was a copy editor, right? And so sometimes we would order lunch in. I was trying to remember what we ordered. There was a lot of Thai food going on. Not really that much Chinese, but there was a place called Burritoville.
Come on. The Route 66
Route
plant-based one?
66.
That was my guy.
Route 66, and also I would alternate between that and Lost in Austin.
Yes.
I don't even remember what was in that, but I just remember the name.
Yeah.
We would go out. There's a place called Mission Cafe, I think on 2nd Ave, that had basically like an avocado sprout sandwich, but it was cheap. It was good. Often on these lunch breaks, if I got to get out of the office, I would do writing. So I would write. I would write my own stuff, my fiction. And, that connects to my book because some of these stories kind of had their genesis during kind of late 90s when I was there. I started there, I believe, in 94.
Okay.
So any place where I could sit, it sounds very lonely, but I would, I would take my full union-mandated hour lunch break, and I would eat and I would write. And I would go to, I guess, East 6th Street, where all the Indian restaurants were, and kind of try a bunch of them, but I settled on Taj Mahal, which is long gone. And the vibes, but the price was like $4.95 for the lunch special. And I would count out my change. So it was $6.20 or something with tips. So I could just leave it there. And I always got the chana shog. Yeah. I sometimes went there with colleagues, but that was kind of like just a place where I could kind of center myself.
You could tuck yourself into a corner. It was a little bit darker. Yeah. You could have anonymity.
Yeah. I miss that time. And it's also, I just kind of stumbled on it. There wasn't the sort of online restaurant culture, and the food probably wasn't great, but it was economical. I liked it.
I remember Taj Mahal. I went there. I lived on 7th, so I used to go to Taj Mahal. It was great. I think we certainly didn't have that bug in our ear from social that it's not cool to eat at a Taj Mahal, or it's not new to eat at Taj Mahal.
So I have many, I would also read a lot during these solitary lunch sessions. And so every so often I'll come across a book on my shelf and there's a Taj Mahal business card stuck in there. Sometimes with notate, words that I needed to look up and stuff. A little bit later, I became an editor, and, I would kind of hang out with other editors, or sometimes a writer was in town, or I'd take them out to lunch. I was talking to Dennis Lim, I think he's the artistic director now at the New York Film Festival, but he was the film editor at the time, and he said we went to B Bar and we went to NoHo Star, and now I'm of course we did.
That was a really buzzy restaurant. Before it kind of faded out in the early 2000s, but it was super buzzy.
And I don't even remember what I ate there, but I just, it was so close by. Yeah. And it was really, because even back then I lived on the Upper West for the most part. And just to have that every day as a change of scenery, a change of food options was amazing. There's plenty more I'm forgetting, but you asked about drinking.
Yeah, so is there an after hours place for the Voice staff to have a drink?
Other people may have different memories, but for me it was always the Scratcher.
That's what I thought. Yep.
And my first novel, which came out in 2008, that's kind of loosely based on the last days of the Voice, of my Voice, Village Voice experience. I think the first page has a line we go out to drink once or twice a week, sometimes three is too much. It's but I remember it being, I don't really drink that much now, but it was just a great social, a way to wind down, a way to just talk shop or just talk about anything. And sometimes people would bring other friends. I met all these cool people who, a colleague would invite, someone. I'm thinking, other writers and agents and stuff like
Well,
that.
Scratcher also
great.
was an early eater bar too. Because I think their offices were in the Voice building,
really?
literally 20 years ago.
Oh man, I'm out of it. Okay.
And I remember Scratcher was a place. Gawker as well was there, and it's like it had an if I remember correctly, like Jameson. It's like having your Jameson,
right?
It's like an Irish bar.
Yeah, no, that was definitely the vibe, and it's still around. I just haven't been there.
That's insane. I thought it closed.
Well, I thought it had closed, and somebody from out of town was like, "I'm having birthday drinks at the Scratcher," and I was like, "Really?"
This is blowing my mind that the Scratcher is still open. I don't drink as well anymore, so I'm not a bar fly, but I'd like to stop by.
One other thing I do remember is I had a colleague named Amanda Petrasky who was on the copy desk for the fact-checking desk. She was kind of like the doyenne of fact-checking at The Voice. And her son, Sasha, opened Milk and Honey. And so she invited us there one night, and it was just unbelievable. I never went back. It was like a perfect sort of, I've never been to like a kind of a bar experience like that before. And that was kind of toward the end of my time there. But I remember it just popped into my head.
Yeah, Milk and Honey.
This morning, Milk and Honey.
Yeah.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace, absolutely. Today's episode of This Is Taste is brought to you by Grow Therapy. If you're navigating anxiety, depression, relationship changes, or something else, you deserve care that meets you where you're at. Grow Therapy is designed to help you find a therapist who fits your needs and supports the way you want to feel. Grow makes it easier to find the right therapist for you. They connect you with thousands of independent, licensed therapists across the U.S., offering both virtual and in-person sessions. You can search by insurance, provider specialty, treatment methods, and more to find a therapist who is right for you. Whatever challenges you're facing, Grow Therapy is here to help. Sessions average about $21 with insurance, and some pay as little as $0 depending on their plan. Visit growtherapy.com/taste today to get started. That's growtherapy.com/taste. Availability and coverage vary by state and insurance plan.
New Vitamin Water Zero Sugar Pineapple Passion Fruit is packed with vitamins. Just like the amount of peas we packed in that sentence. It's packed like your tote bag. The one you stole from your ex. Or your overpriced half a studio apartment. Or extra rushed rush hour traffic. Packed like your calendar. Triple booked at 5, of course. Grab a Vitamin Water. Did we mention it's packed with vitamins?
Did you ever dine with Robert Sietsema, a long time?
Gosh, I wish, so when I was a copy editor, and this will be confirmed by the other people who are on the desk with me, there's some articles you like pounce on when they get into the queue, and others you're like, somebody else can take it. But like Sietsema was one of those writers where we just always wanted to read him. So I was a huge fan. I think it was also kind of revolutionary because, I knew about like movie criticism and book criticism, but like food criticism was like a new thing to me. And I don't know if I was either filling in for an editor or copy editing a piece of his. Anyway, he sent me a really nice note saying like, we should grab a bite sometime. And I was like, so flustered that I was like, yeah, but then never followed up.
You couldn't respond.
No, but I continue to be a fan of his. I think he's amazing. He's just as good now as he was then.
He is, and he's on Substack, and he's been on the show many times.
I love him on the show, yeah.
And he's that Substack. He's like, I would say his output is like grinding like The Voice.
Yes.
He's like putting out 3 posts a week.
Oh my God.
And he's relentlessly covering New York City dining. And it's so impressive.
Yeah.
And
if I'm correct, I think Bob Christgau was his editor there.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And so just being in the presence, vicinity of these legends, these kind of alt-weekly legends.
Yeah.
Jim Hoberman's office was right near mine. And just kind of very formative. Like those are kind of still my heroes in some way.
Absolutely. And I think it comes out in Personal Days, and it also comes out in this collection.
Thank you.
It's not nostalgia because you've said it. You wrote many of these stories a long time ago. So it's not even done with nostalgia. It's just done in the moment.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, we can talk more later, but like this is over 25 years. So the earliest stories in here, the earliest one I wrote in 97, I was sitting at The Voice, looking at The Voice, and there was a full page ad for like a story contest for first-time writers. So I was like, I probably went to Taj Mahal, I wrote a story very quickly that I liked. I entered it and it was accepted. And so that came out 98. And I had there are a couple pre 9/11 stories.
Yeah.
So a couple from 2000, like summer of 2001, that I still love and that I include in the collection. And then, but it's then every couple years there's another story that I liked. And so it's sort of, it's not me from 2025 looking back and trying to recreate those years.
No, and that makes it really special because you can't replace that writing in the moment and like your career and your style as it's changed, because there are many very stylish pieces here and format, I would say, adventures, some aggressive adventures in the best possible way. We're going to get to the book, but I have a few more general questions because, again, dream guest here. You're this is terrific. I've asked this question to some authors like George Saunders, Gary Steingart, Samantha Irby, and I just want to get your take. When you're writing a novel, when you've got this big piece of writing and you're on like a schedule of sorts, Ed, what's the food and drink looking like?
The food and drink is looking not as vibrant as perhaps I wish. There's something about, especially with a novel, like a long project, where it really is like I try to make it the first thing I do every morning. So like avocado toast with some olive oil and red pepper, or if there's some leftover rice, I'll do this rice and an fried egg with some kim, like Korean seaweed, and maybe some sesame oil. But often it's like peanut butter on saltines. Like I'm trying to eat enough so that I'm still functioning. Because if I have too good of a meal, I will fall asleep.
For sure. I think all writers get that in that mode.
Which is maybe fine. I mean, if I've done a good morning of work, I deserve some sleep. But in my mind, I'm like, I should try to do another 2 hours of writing.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, it truly is fuel.
Yes, exactly.
And George Saunders famously answered on, we've run that episode a couple times. He like literally doesn't eat. Like it's just coffee.
Coffee is my primary fuel.
Yeah.
And I try not to overdo it, but I usually.
Do you have a coffee ritual?
No. Well, often my wife is waking up a little bit before me, so she'll be making the coffee. It's usually like Peet's. I now have started putting a little collagen powder in it and soy milk. But that's it.
Yeah, buddy, you've done well. I would say out of all those authors, you have a specific routine. You've passed the test.
Okay.
No, I appreciate that. So you were raised in Buffalo by parents who moved to America from Korea in the 1960s. Yeah. I just want to hear about what food was like growing up.
Such a great question, and one that I like to. I'm not Mr. Korea or anything, but I'm Korean and I'm fascinated by the country and the history. But, I grew up in Buffalo and we didn't actually, my first trip to Korea, I was like 10 and then I didn't go for another, 10, 12 years. So it wasn't like we were going back and forth from Korea to America. There was kind of a small but tight Korean American community, including, I had some cousins who were there. But I guess I wasn't, as a kid, you kind of want to fit in a little bit. And it's like, I want to eat hamburgers. That's, and I actually remember, my mom and a couple of the other Korean moms would go to, just all of us going to McDonald's and like getting Happy Meals and stuff. So my mom is a really wonderful cook. I write a lot. I feel like especially my novel, Same Bed, Different Dreams, there's a lot of my dad in there. But in some ways, like my mom is so, just the anchor of the family in so many ways, and she's just a great cook. And so even though I didn't immediately love all this Korean food, just kind of gradually it worked into my diet. And I think by high school I was savoring kind of more Korean dishes and kind of able to really love kimchi in a way. As a kid, she would sometimes white kimchi, washed out kimchi, or takwan, that kind of pickle. I remember rice and lettuce and bulgogi would be something that was sort of
a staple on your house.
Yeah, something that maybe was, or maybe sometimes with a little hamburger and ketchup. Sometimes I wonder if her food, especially when I was younger, she's kind of trying to bridge, Korean and kind of American or Western styles. But whatever it was delicious. And now, every time I see her, every time I get back to Buffalo, it's just want to stay home and eat whatever
Yeah.
she's cooking.
Did she have a special occasion dish or anything that you really looked forward to that she
I
made?
look forward to. That has changed. Now I'm thinking of like, well, I didn't love tofu growing up, but there was tofu. There's like, she does kind of like batter, I guess an egg battered like zucchini and fish. She does. Oh gosh. Okay. This is kind of stuff you don't find in restaurants, or these are like banchan at most. But like changjirim, which is kind of this braised beef, soy sauce. I could eat that and rice like every day. I mean, it's just like very primal to me.
I mean, jjangjeorum, like when it's homemade and it has the perfect balance with the rice and it's like savory but like sweet.
It's just the best.
So good.
There's a soup called miyeokguk, seaweed soup that I don't know if you can really find those in restaurants. I think I put those foods in my second novel, Same Bed, Different Dreams. Like there's a big food scene at the beginning. And I think I put those foods in or mentioned them just because I love them so much, but
it's a party. It's a group at a restaurant.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
it's a big
that
party
scene is very memorable.
Yeah, totally. But it's also like, maybe unconsciously it was sort of like, these are the foods that I love that you don't really eat them in restaurants.
Yeah, and did you have it on your birthday, the miyeokguk? That's a
good question. We definitely. Actually, my aunt brought it over when my wife gave birth to our kids, and which was so amazing. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if I had it on my birthday per se, but it was around
during birth. That's
cool. No, her cooking is amazing. I also like Thanksgiving and Christmas were big occasions. Even as I got into college and went away and came to New York, like going back and kind of getting together with my aunt and uncle's family and my cousins, like. Thanksgiving would be turkey and kind of that Western stuff, American thing, but it was like. Overwhelmed with the Korean dishes that
fun.
And it was just great. I'm very fond. Those are fond memories.
I love that. I love those memories. And I think you're really qualified to answer this question. You've been living in New York or visiting New York since the 80s.
Yeah.
And how has Korean food changed in New York since your earliest visits?
It's changed so much. And I'll say up top, like I think it's amazing. Like I think, and you're the man, right? It's so the evolution in both like what is served, what is presented, and kind of the way these restaurants look and the cachet. And so for special occasions, I'm usually going to Korean restaurants. Like this year we've been to. There's this place, Naro, Rockefeller Center, Muno, this beautiful space. Beautiful, like amazing. And then for my son's graduation, we went to Naro. We also went to I think it's called Hojokban.
Oh yeah,
like another hand hospitality place.
I love Hojokban. That's such a great place.
Amazing places. Kind of past Momofuku incarnations have been kind of mind blowing. There's also a lot of stuff I follow on Instagram that I haven't been to yet. Like I think there's a place called Kisa, Dubu House. Like I gotta get there. Having said that, it does feel like such an evolution, and in a way, Korea is hot right now, right? Like the food, obviously the K-dramas, K-pop.
The literature. I mean,
literature.
Your work you're part of this wave. I mean, you're not Korean born.
Yeah.
But you're part of this wave of recognized.
Growing up, there were no like kind of readily available Korean authors, let alone Korean American authors. But, but in terms of, there's a bit of like cultural fossilization or something going on where, I'm imprinted on my mom's food, but also like the food of like the early 90s in K-Town, right? So I know there's a Gammyeok has reopened, but like the old Gammyeok, that was just such a haven for me.
Right on the corner of Broadway, like the original location.
A couple doors down, and it was just like, just the look of it, very kind of a little bit rustic, but so welcoming. And really they had like, it was all about the sulingtang, and you could get some blood sausage and a little bit of other things. But like that was my go-to place, and either alone, sometimes after work or after drinking at the Scratcher, but also like friends, Korean friends or non-Korean friends or people coming into town. Like I just have so many fond memories of that place and kind of like the bigger, I like Kangsa.
Kangsa, I was going to ask you because that's what Dubu House is.
Oh, really?
So Kangsa is back open now.
It's back open? Okay. I will check
after years of being emptied, Kangsa has been revitalized.
Gungbangsan, that kind of with a piano on the,
Yes.
like I kind of just, they do a lot of things well, and those are kind of my touchstones, I guess. But I love being on 32nd Street. I love kind of just, it's so happening. Like just, I love seeing all the young people. I love just, all the snacks and people having fun. It's just great. It's such a vibrant street.
Well, thank you so much for naming those names in an era of 32nd Street that is long gone.
Yeah.
We've got Pocha 32 is still there.
That's right. Yeah.
Arang is gone.
Yes.
The second Pocha that was on the second floor.
That was on the second floor. Yeah.
That was like my favorite spot all time. But it's an era it's when Korean food was really in K-Town.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really being written about outside of the Roberts and the Ruth Royschels of the world.
Right. Exactly.
Finding it.
I remember even like family trips to New York and in the early 80s, and just like, I can't remember, it was there was like a Korean restaurant we would go to that I don't think is still around, but just, I mean, it's such a difference from Buffalo. There were Koreans in Buffalo and a, Korean grocery store, but for a long time there weren't any Korean restaurants. Like a couple small ones opened up, but, my parents didn't like going to them. So to be in New York, I think that's part of my attraction to, I've been here like 30 plus years now, and I like being near Korean stuff.
Yeah.
I find, even though, I don't really speak Korean, but I like kind of that proximity is important to me.
To have Solentang,
Oh my God.
At any time of the day,
Yeah.
literally at Gamyeok, it took you back to home.
Totally. Yeah. It's, I would also, I was watching a Mangchi video a while back, and she was at Hannam Market in Fort Lee, and she was like eating at the kind of cafeteria at the little place there. And then, so we started going there, and that's like exactly the food I want.
Yeah.
So it's dokmanduguk, it's naengmyeon, bibimbap, it's jjajangmyeon, and it's like it's great for my family. Like I have 2 teenage boys who eat a lot, and that's where they, when we get Korean food, it's often we'll take a trip.
And you can go grocery shopping.
And then we go grocery shopping.
There you
for the
pick
week.
up the haul for the week.
It's a ritual.
Oh, I love that.
Definitely.
Well, I appreciate those thoughts. I mean, it's so fun to talk about Korean food in New York through the decades. Let's talk about the short story collection, An Oral History of Atlantis. It's not nostalgia in a sense, because these are actually short stories written during the 90s, but so it gives off this 90s milieu, this environment that I think many of our listeners will be attracted to. 90s is a point of fascination for many. And you take us through, there's also old Hollywood, there's online culture through the years. There's a DVD director's cut transcript that's so clever and fun, and I just love that it just jumped off the page. And when you're thinking about your career and all these stories you've written, how are you putting it all together in one collection?
Well, for me, stories were always fun, and so I worked for many years at The Voice. I worked publishing, teaching, jobs all throughout. And then I was doing another kind of work, which was writing these novels, right? And I wrote several that didn't get published, and I would just start a new one. And 97, when I wrote the first story that I wrote that got published, when I did that, I was like, this writing can be fun. Writing fiction can actually be fun. I can find an audience, short fiction. So that's sort of where the attraction is for me with the short story. And so, as I said before, a couple of these are kind of pre 9/11. I didn't know 9/11 was happening, but they have this sort of prelapsarian feel, as kind of fantastical feel to them. And then, actually after, in the early 2000s, my workload at The Voice kind of changed in character and in workload. Like I was editing a lot of people, I was writing a lot, I was reviewing a lot, and it was great. It was actually, there was this window of time at The Voice where it was just what a dream job. Sometimes I'd go out in the middle of the day to go to a screening and write a movie review, but I could keep. So this, I had a novel project that was sort of, not going so great, but through the 2000s and the 2010s, like I would be writing these stories often for a reading event. Somebody would invite me to read.
Oh, I
and
see.
So I have that journalist mentality, like, oh, so-and-so is asking me to read at this event in Brooklyn in 3 weeks. I better write a new short story.
Yeah.
And nobody was forcing me to do that, but it was actually, that's how this book got written. I was kind of like, what can I write that will be, get people's attention, be entertaining, hopefully make them laugh. I think this book is funnier than, Personal Days is pretty funny.
It's pretty funny.
And Same Bed has some good jokes.
It's a return to form
But
in the humor side of things. For you.
That's what I've been struck by. And anyway, so the most recent of these stories was like early 2020s, and one just got published like a couple months ago. So it really does span 25 years. But while I was putting it together, it just felt like I have the same sensibility. I definitely have the same sense of humor. And I noticed certain names recurring. And I was like, wait, is this the same character? And so it was almost like my novelist's impulse to like make these connections. So it is, it's not a novel in stories per se, but it does feel like, one of those, the sum is greater than the parts.
There's
type of
connective
deals.
tissue.
Yeah.
There, for sure.
Totally.
So I'm going to ask you about some specific stories where food plays a role, but listener, pick it up. You can just, obviously with a short story collection, you dive in wherever you want and you're going to laugh. You're going to laugh.
Yeah, each one can be enjoyed individually.
I agree, but there's in the story, The Gift, I want to know more about Dublinsky, this protagonist who's a professor of great mystery at a community college by the airport. You have him teaching students, and he's daydreaming about possibly leaving an eggplant fritter left on the counter. I love that little note there. And then the story kind of climaxes at a meal at Celestial Empire. And I recognize this restaurant. Growing up in the Midwest.
Yeah.
It's a place where they're doing poo-poo platters and spring rolls and Peking duck and fortune cookies. And you have this wonderful scene there. What made you write about this specific restaurant and style?
I love that you picked up on this. I'm a little emotional for some reason. I don't name the city, the town that takes place in, but I will say there is a community college near the airport in Buffalo, and this restaurant is an amalgam of Chinese restaurants in the 70s that we used to go to in Buffalo. Specifically one called Lee Chu's in Tonawanda, New York, which is kind of right by Buffalo. And it's funny because I found, I went online and I was like, Lee Chu's is long gone, but somebody had posted an ad, like a TV ad, right, from Lee Chu's, and like the font, the people there, their 70s clothing, and it's all white people actually. But I feel like when we were there, maybe they did that for the purposes of that ad, but it was mostly like, there's a lot of like Korean, Chinese people going there because it's sort of one of maybe two places. And I actually asked some, friends from Buffalo who I didn't grow up with and who I didn't know till I got to the city, and neither of them had ever gone there. And I just kind of thought, oh, so it wasn't this common Buffalo thing. It was like my family that went. And yes, hence like, the poo-poo platter, like obviously as a kid, I just thought that name was hilarious, right?
Of course.
But I would always want to order it. The Lazy Susans and like the thing of chopsticks and pot stickers and things like that. And like I said before, there wasn't really a Korean restaurant in Buffalo for a long time, and so that's where we would go.
Oh yeah.
There's another place called, I won't go through all of the history of Chinese restaurants in Buffalo, but Golden Palace was another one, and then later there's a place called Golden Duck, which is kind of a small place, but my parents liked it. Or maybe I misremembered. There was a place where the owners were Chinese but had come from, I guess, near Korea. So they actually knew some Korean.
Yeah.
So that was like another nice connection. And, I was thinking about this, like, why did I set this story there? Jablonski is a professor of aphorism.
Yeah, I love
And
that.
I think my lizard brain was just like, okay, fortune cookies. But as soon as I started, typing Celestial Empire and started writing that scene, it was like all these memories,
I see
like
it.
Lee Chu's kind of got stirred up. Yeah.
It's a lovely, lovely story.
Thank you so much.
Dublinsky, do we ever see him in your fiction anywhere else?
I think he might be mentioned briefly in another story in the collection.
I have to.
Or maybe I took that out.
Yeah, no, it's a fascinating character. Machine City revolves around a student film at Yale in the 90s. One of the scenes is at this vegetarian restaurant, and it evokes such 90s feelings. There's smoking inside, and it truly has the saddest food. I think one of the characters eats a dinner roll for their meal.
Right.
And I think you're playing around with students and food and how students maybe aren't thinking about the food, and they're just there for the community. And there's like, it's a really great 90s scene.
I'm not a vegetarian. I think in the early 90s, I guess, I feel like vegetarianism was sort of like an occult thing almost. Like, I knew very few people who were vegetarian, but this place, the place I think I name it in the story Machine City. It's called Claire's. It's called Claire's. It might be called Claire's Cornucopia because it was on a corner.
That sounds like it.
And I mean, that was not to be snotty. That was like kind of my attitude. I was like, the few times I was there, I was like, there's nothing to eat. This really amazing novelist, Julia Otsuka, who Buddha in the Attic and The Swimmers and When the Emperor Was Divine, those are her amazing novels. She went to Yale a couple years before me, and she just read the book, and she emailed me, I actually liked Claire's
that's
Cornucopia.
funny.
And I was like, so it definitely had an audience. I think it is actually still around. But that was maybe my first sort of kind of reckoning with like, what is vegetarianism? And now, of course, I try to eat less meat when I can. And, I'm glad that place was around. But I don't have so many, actually just talking to you now, like memories of other like New Haven eateries are now bubbling up. But yeah.
Well, I mean, you were just a student, and you had other things on your mind than the food.
Limited budget, so it was
limited
often
budget,
like pizza. Yeah.
It's a great story. I don't want to talk about more.
City, yeah.
It's a great pizza city. It's a great story. I'll just read you that. It's a great story. It's one of my favorites in the collection. Another favorite is Watch Your Step. It's definitely a page turner. It's in the spy thriller genre, and I think food plays a pivotal role in the actual arc of it. And you set a scene at it's a wealthy uncle's house in Apgujeong in Seoul, and there's a critical plot point where the menu plays into the story. How did you think about this wealthy class in Seoul and using this kind of spycraft as a device?
After college, I lived in Seoul for about not quite a year, about nine months, and it was really just. I had never experienced Korea. Like we had visited for a couple of weeks when I was 10, but that was it. And I don't think my parents were really wild about me going there. Like, and this was like 92, right? And so I had this sort of job at a law firm where I kind of would help translate stuff and just kind of be like a liaison, right in the Kyobo building, right in the middle of in downtown Seoul. But it was kind of an attempt to connect or reconnect with Koreanness, just to experience this place. But it was also very lonely. Like I didn't know. I mean, I wound up kind of actually meeting a couple people from Buffalo who I knew, who happened to be there, and we lived together for a while. But there were times where I would. And my Korean was much better then, but I was trying to like navigate like what should I eat? Where do I go? How do I behave? Like how do I use the bus? And this is the story. Watch Your Step is a story where I kind of take that experience and like transform it into a spy story. And I think one thing about loneliness is that especially I think when you're eating alone in restaurants, you feel self-conscious. And I often felt like, what if people think I'm a spy? Like, this is just like all playing out in my head. There were also times when I was in Korea where just kind of the way I dressed, which is, whatever, like East Coast, whatever, liberal arts, like
92,
whatever.
I have
What I mean.
thoughts about what you're wearing. It's
right.
cool.
And so, but you stand up, don't kind of look like people. Like my glasses didn't kind of look like what other people were wearing. And a couple times, like I would be stopped on the street, like by soldiers with guns. And did they think I was like, a North Korean spy, a Japanese spy? I don't know. But that like, in my mind, like this fantasy, like it kind of was good fodder for this story. I also had this weird thing where, I was working at this office, but every couple months I had to like travel. Like this driver would take me to this really distant like visa place where I had to do some kind of shenanigans just to like stay there. And I often wondered what that was about. Like I was born in Buffalo. I had never really lived in Korea, and it just seemed strange to me. And so like little things like that stuck in my mind. And kind of the food aspect, I will also say apgoojang at that time was kind of notorious in Korea. Like that's when it sort of became this, I think they were called the oranges, like it was the rich people's playground. Yep. So I kind of had that in my mind. There was also this phenomenon of like well-meaning Korean, like friends of the family, sometimes taking me to Western restaurants in Seoul, like this Italian restaurant, and just like eating like quote unquote Italian food in Korea that tastes like I don't know what it's
ketchup
it's
is probably a main ingredient in that Italian food.
Or there are places with like pizza with kimchi pizza, which actually wasn't bad, or bulgogi pizza. Like they were trying all these kind of fusion misfires at the time. So that's kind of, this is like three of the sort of inspirations, I think, for that particular story.
And then you land on this menu and using that as, I'm not going to spoil the story, but using it as a key plot device. It's very clever. And did you research spycraft? And
I just made that up.
You made it all up. That's why we love fiction.
I do love, ciphers and things like that. It kind of, in early stories, none of which are published here, I often did that. I have a story published in a journal, but not here, where the first letter of every paragraph spells out like a secret code. And so I love doing stuff like that. But it's weird because that story, Watch Your Step, it does actually feel like a preparation for Same Bed, Different Dreams, which was a lot about kind of tension in Korea and surveillance and spying and stuff like that. So
it warmed you up for that
very much
work that you're so well known for. What inspired you to write about seafood haggis and artisanal jelly beans? You use it as kind of a funny joke, but there's more to it. There's a meaning there.
I think there's part of me that is there are a couple other stories where I kind of get into outlandish food descriptions, like food that should not exist, and there's like in my writerly DNA, there's perhaps a experimental side. So, the experimental writers of the Oulipo group in France, like where they would just take kind of irrational things and meld them together. And I think that sort of comes from that. It also comes from, I believe, being on book tour for Personal Days and like my minder when I went to Portland, kind of raving about the local food scene, which, sounded really exciting. And I did actually have a good meal there after my reading, but which I think 7 people went to the reading. But
at least you got a meal out of it.
I got a meal.
Something else,
got a great meal. But I think I had this out-of-body experience as he was describing like this incredibly complex food scene of just like melding like seafood haggis, like just kind of like making up stuff, riffing off of what he was actually saying.
It's it just hits hard. Like the idea of seafood haggis is it's abstract but it has it's like this over the topness
Yeah.
of the where food can go.
Where food can go and maybe where it shouldn't go.
Where it shouldn't go.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean,
exactly.
the bulgogi pizza or whatever. Is another thing. Yeah.
I love the book. Listeners, please pick it up and dive in. And what's on deck for you right now? I mean, this is a collection, so you maybe weren't working on all these stories recently. What are you working on?
So I'm working on another novel, and it also has actually quite a bit of Korean stuff and Buffalo, Western New York stuff.
Okay.
It's almost like, I mean, some of the things are things that I didn't put in same bed that I just thought, that's interesting, but it doesn't belong here. I've been describing it as a horror novel, which is somewhat accurate, but there are sections where the scariness is sort of outlapped by my sense of humor. So I kind of have to decide there. But I also have a memoir, this unusual memoir coming out next year that I hope people like. It's done in 1,000 fragments or something like that. It's about 200 pages, but it's nonlinear. It sounds scarier than it is, but it's basically this manuscript that I wrote kind of in the period we're talking about. I was 28. This is like in the late 90s. I was working at The Voice, and actually, this comes full circle. Often in these solitary lunches, I was working on this. I was writing this document.
Yeah,
and every fragment begins with the word "in." So it's like, in Korea, I blah blah blah. In Buffalo, in a certain book, and there's a quotation. So it's sort of like maybe more of a poem, and but it's a portrait, I think, of who I was at that time at The Voice, doing these solitary lunches, trying to be a writer, writing my heart out for nobody. And in any case, I found this manuscript, which I'd written, but I had kind of lost.
Wow.
And I found it at the beginning of the pandemic. I was like, what's in this envelope? Oh, here's this book that I wrote. And I had no other copy of it. So I typed it into the computer just to have a record of it. And, by about 20 pages in, I was like kind of in love with it. So, anyway.
This is so cool to hear, because I think like you've really set up your life experiences and that time in your life at 28 and capturing that moment from a long lost manuscript is special.
It's literally everything we've been talking about today.
Yeah.
It's Korea, it's Buffalo, it's like working at The Voice, it's writing,
It's and that's out next year.
It's out next year.
Well, I cannot wait to read it.
Thank you, Matt.
And maybe we'll have you back to talk about it. But you're always welcome back. I'm such a fan of your work. Ed, on This Is Taste, we ask guests about their discerning taste. So to close this interview, here's a little rapid-fire, fast and furious taste check. Are you ready?
I am so ready.
The best fruit.
Cherimoya?
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do, but I haven't had it a lot.
Okay, sometimes it's called sugar apple, custard apple. First time I had it, I had landed in Taiwan. My wife's parents are from Taiwan, so this was like back in the 90s. They presented me with this fruit I had never seen before. The flesh was so soft. The taste was kind of like kiwi, banana, strawberry. Like I didn't know what was going on. The seeds were very like alien looking. So delicious. Yeah.
The worst vegetable.
My wife's gonna hate me. I'm gonna say eggplant. I will eat eggplant. I love the color, texture. I'm not wild about.
Yeah,
I'll eat it.
Did you have a preparation in the house that you guys do
for eggplant?
Yeah.
Sometimes she'll do like kind of like a Chinese, stir fry thing. I love my wife's cooking. Don't get me wrong, but I will not willingly eat it at a restaurant.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
What is your typical breakfast?
Oatmeal with some honey or maybe some raisins. We bought this thing of like chia seeds that never seems to diminish. So I'll put in. I don't really like it, so I'll put in some chia seeds.
Like 1,000 spoons are in there.
It's still there. I don't know it's probably gone bad by now. That's my typical breakfast. Sometimes this is a whole different area. Absolute Bagels, which just closed. Sometimes we would have like bags of frozen bagels, and so sometimes I would eat that. Yeah.
The best dessert.
I'm going to go Korean with this. It's not quite a dessert. It's more of a street food. I think it's bungeobang, the fish-shaped red bean thing.
Yeah. Made in a special mold.
Yes, made in a special mold on the street. And it's really like you don't get it at a restaurant per se. There are places you can get it on 32nd Street. That also just goes back to me in Korea in the early 90s, really cold winters there, and just having this delicious treat and so hot. It was.
Yeah, it would steam up on the street.
Yes. Oh my God. So that's going to be my favorite.
I love that. I think this is a good one for you. A restaurant you wish you could bring back from the dead.
I've mentioned Absolute Bagels. I mentioned the Old Gammyeok. I'm going to go with, and being a vibes guy, Columbus Bakery in the 1990s, which was on Columbus and about 83rd. And for a while I lived on 83rd, basically 83rd and like very close by. I lived above Cafe Lalo.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Strangely. But I never went there because I would go to Columbus Bakery, and I would go there every morning before going to The Voice, and I would write there. I had paper. I didn't have a laptop, but I had paper and a clipboard, and I would write there. And then I have another memory with it. So I would get a sticky roll and a kind of bottomless cup of coffee. I saw Jerry Seinfeld in there once with his wife, and my friend Sloane Crosley used to live on Columbus, and so she would sometimes meet me there.
Catch up.
Good memory.
Good memory. I love hearing that story of Upper West Side in the 90s. Yeah. Such an era that played on television pretty effectively.
Right, yeah. I had actually not really watched. I didn't have a TV back then, which is why I wrote so much. But so I'm now a Seinfeld fan, but I didn't.
That's crazy. You were living in that world.
And he was there.
And he was there, and you were unaware. That's beautiful. When you have a craving for fast food, Ed, where are you going?
I really don't eat that much fast food, but if I'm driving somewhere, often to Buffalo to see my folks, we'll stop by McDonald's and I get 2 hamburgers and some fries, and it's perfect. It's actually exactly the amount of hamburger I want.
2 hamburgers is a good choice. Your favorite city outside America to visit for food?
This might be recency bias, but I just got back from Taipei, and we also went to Seoul and Tokyo. It was kind of this, we're away for a couple weeks. But we started and ended in Taipei. It's nuts. It's just great. So some of the things I had there, this crispy milk donut, this place called Wang's Broth that had braised pork over rice. There was a place near where my in-laws have a place. We would take a bus and get Taiwanese breakfast, this thing called yu chow, and sometimes covered with rice. I could go on and on, scallion buns. I don't even like oysters, but we went to this place that had these oysters that were like amazing. Wow. So I could easily have just spent another. I kind of felt like I needed another stomach because, I would just eat everything and get so full.
And was this these 3 locations as like a vacation, or were you working?
Yeah, it was a vacation. So my in-laws live in California, but they do go to Taipei quite a bit, so we kind of timed it with their trip and my sister-in-law's family. So, but it was nice. I love. We were in Seoul for only a couple days. The food there was great too, obviously, and I'd never been to Tokyo, and the food there was amazing.
Oh wow!
Too. But I'm going to say Taipei.
I love that answer. Last one, your favorite sandwich?
If you'd asked me this, a year ago, I would not have had an answer. But on Father's Day, I went to this place on the Upper West Side called Florentine. My family took me out. And I got this thing, it was like a schnitzel sandwich on like ciabatta bread. I don't know how to describe it, but the flavoring was great. It was not too dry. It was kind of good moisture level. And it was it was a little too big, but it was so good. Like after every bite, I was like, this is the best sandwich I've ever had. And so I finished the whole thing. If I go there again, I would go with someone. Maybe you can come with me. We would split it, and we'd get maybe some.
We're going to split that sandwich. Yeah. I like that choice. We got to have a lunch. It'd be fun. Well, Ed, this has been a real pleasure having you on the show. Please come back. Thank you so much for joining This Is Taste.
Thank you, Matt.
Jason Diamond, welcome back to This Is Taste.
Wow.
So happy to see you.
3-Timers Club.
You are a 3-Timers Club.
Is that like for SNL, like you get the jacket? Do I get like a bib or something?
Well, Priya Krishna has 6, and we haven't given Priya anything. So until we give Priya that, I'm going to say it's an apron.
Yeah.
But a more stylish one.
I don't know why I went with bib. I should have said apron.
That's okay. I mean, the jacket SNL obviously has. We need our own. Three Timers Club, you're always welcome back. You'll get to 5 or 6 soon.
Yes.
And really, I'm not going to talk about The Melt, but like subscribe to The Melt.
Yeah.
Love your Substack. It's always such a great read. Before we get to your novel, which I spoke about in a previous episode, a little mini review, one of my favorite novels of the year, it's called Kaplan's Plot, and it's terrific, Jason.
Thanks.
We're going to talk all about it, but I always want to check in with you about restaurants. Where are you dining right now?
So again, just like last time I was here, I think my baby had just been born, so it was mostly just like Neptune 2, which is still my go-to. I go to Little Egg once a week.
Yeah.
That's become like sort of my favorite thing in the world because I hated Little Egg when it originally opened, and I feel bad saying that, but it was more me than them.
Sure.
Because I was like, "You're taking over Williamsburg. It's gonna be gentrified beyond belief now." And little did I know, Little Egg was like the last great thing of that era.
Yeah.
And then they opened up down the street for me, and it's been like my favorite place to take my daughter. So I'm there like once a week. But Chateau Royale was incredible.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've been yet, but I'd love them to let me make that a place I go to often. But I don't think I don't know. But I've been really into Sofa Cafe a lot. I've been stopping in there.
The cafe of Sofre.
Yeah.
I love that place.
It's so good.
So good.
Yeah, and it's soup season is coming up, so Yemen Cafe will be on constant rotation because of their lamb soup.
Yep.
And
I missed that. That was in my old neighborhood. Love that.
we buy the trick is you order extra lamb soup. They give you the cups for free.
Yep.
And you just freeze it. And
Yep.
yeah.
Great Rex. You're in this like pocket of Brooklyn. It's very specific. I feel like that's your energy. Is that little pocket of Park Slope?
It's certainly become. It's like that Park Slope, Prospect Heights, Crown Heights, sort of. We're it's funny because it's like we had a kid last year, and a lot of our friends in that neighborhood started having kids in the last 2 years, and we're all in our 40s.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a funny like 40-something media writer. I don't know. It's strange.
Absolutely lovely community you have there.
Yeah,
Great
it's
people
the
there.
best.
All right, we're going to talk about the novel. I think when you were last on, you were telling me about it in the lobby, and I was like getting excited. And it was, you set it up as, you told me it was like The Godfather 2, but Jewish and set in Chicago.
Yeah.
Set up the book for our listeners.
Yeah, I'm still going with that because I think I kind of get into that writerly like, well, it's about this and the deeper this that, but it's about generations. It's about the things we don't know about the people who came before us and what they passed down to us essentially. So it takes place over 2 timelines, the early 20th century and the modern day, and it's about a grandson of a Jewish gangster from Chicago who kind of starts finding out little things about his grandfather's past, who he'd never had met his grandfather. All the while his mom, who he had moved back to Chicago to take care of, she's dying, and they're kind of patching up their relationship a little bit without even kind of knowing it. And it's, to me, it's like there's like a bigger theme there about patching up things, whether it's past sins of the family that you had no part of or your own relationships. And so there's a lot of stuff going on, but that's...
family is at the core of the novel. But I will just say in my mini review, if you're a fan of Boardwalk Empire and you're a fan of just like shoot 'em up gangster period dramas and with suspense, dude, you nail it. It's such a wonderful universe. How did you build Maxwell Street in the 20s? How did you build this universe? And I think I read somewhere online that you didn't really visit Chicago a lot during the writing of the book. So it was clearly a lot of research just, in your, and really in your head, which I applaud. I love the universe. I think it's like been less told in fiction. How'd you do that?
It's actually really funny because that's the longest I'd gone without visiting Chicago. Because I was born in Skokie, and and as a kid I was in Rogers Park, and my family, when they came through Chicago, were on Maxwell Street. And so I grew up hearing a lot about it. And I just became fascinated with it because, both sides of my family, Jewish, immigrant, all that stuff, but we don't have that Lower East Side connection. So I think early on when we would take field trips to places like the the Historical Society. I would always like focus on Maxwell Street, like, oh, these are really interesting pictures, and so I think the pictures really help develop. I love looking at pictures and kind of like putting myself in them, and putting my my imagination in them, and I just kind of drew a little map. I know the streets well enough, and I know what's there now, and it's sad because it's all UIC kind of glossed over.
It's really sad that they didn't preserve so much part of the Jewish shtetl.
Yeah, or the black part. I mean, like, because the African American part that moved in after, it's like the same thing.
That same thing, sure.
Yeah,
which you address in the book beautifully as well. The kind of changing of the neighborhood in the 50s and 60s, which I love that.
I mean, there was one diner. There was a Jewish deli that my grandfather used to go to, and it was when I was a kid, it was still there, and it was owned by a black guy who spoke Yiddish. He had grown up there, working there for the original owners, and it was a Jewish deli. And to cater to the neighborhood as it was changing, he just started bringing in more like Southern African American foods, but he had corned beef and pastrami. And it's interesting because it's when you watch the Blues Brothers, that scene with Aretha Franklin, that diner that she owns, that's it. They filmed it inside of there.
Oh, right. That's right.
That's like legit Maxwell Street.
Yeah, Maxwell Street's such a fascinating place. Al Capone is most associated with Chicago and the mob there. Mm-hmm. But you make a great case in this novel that the Jews are really running shit at the time as well, on kind of a parallel track. Tell us a little bit about this era and the gangsters that inhabited Maxwell Street.
Yeah, I think, a big part of it is that we associate the mob with Italians now. And that's, a lot of my Italian friends love that. They're like, yeah, it's cool. Like, but, the thing is with the mob, it really is, when you go back and look at the history, it's all there. It's the syndicate, however you want to call it, is a mutual Jewish-Italian invention. Like Meyer Lansky had just as much part in building that as anybody else. And, in New York, you had him, obviously Arnold Rothstein, who all these guys are on Boardwalk Empire, I believe. But and Bugsy Siegel, famously played by non-Jew Warren Beatty.
Yeah, that's an interesting film. We'll leave it there.
Yeah. But, in Chicago, it was different. It was like, I think because Capone had so much power and the Italian mobsters had so much power and were so flashy and so openly brazen about, like, I don't care, and then, on the other side of that, you had like the Irish gangsters on the north side, who were taken out by the Italian gangsters. I think the Chicago gangsters were sort of like, we're just going to hang back. We're going to do our thing. And, I tell people, I'm like, the most famous Jewish gangster that I could think of who came later was Lefty Rosenthal, who ended up being played fictitiously by Robert De Niro in Casino.
Yeah.
That's based off of him. And, he's a Chicago Jewish guy. And there's a lot of those kinds of guys, but they're just not big names.
Yeah, they're not names in the Italian lexicon of mobsters. And, of course, New York is so Italian-centric in that world, but Chicago is very different. So you've got this family drama, and you've got this really great, this crescendoing gangster tale that you could just hear the music building while you're reading the novel. I mean, it's brilliant work.
Thanks.
But Jason, of course, there's food in it. You're a longtime, food writer, capital F food writer. You write about many other topics, but I think I know you as somebody who really is deep in the food writing world. And of course, this novel really captures food in the most unique way. I mean, you start the book with this amazing scene between Elijah and Eve at this yakitori restaurant. You write really vividly about liverwurst on Maxwell Street in the 20s. Sidebar, my father's favorite meat was liverwurst.
It's very underrated.
It was like liverwurst, and he loved Miracle Whip, oddly, but which is like kind of a choice. But
together,
that was his jam. But like every birthday, he'd have that. But like liverwurst is such a Chicago Jewish thing to me. I mean, you've got kosher butchering and dairy bars, and Jason, you're building this amazing world around food. Tell me a little bit about how you got into the food of the era.
It was really funny to me because I have always appreciated Chicago's food as like something bigger than obviously hot dogs and pizza, but I love those things.
Yeah.
And when I started I wrote this thing years ago about like the tavern style pizza and its origins. And, it's an interesting thing because it's like Chicago. I'm pretty sure Chicago invented that kind of pizza. And when you ask people about it, it's like, oh, it's because they would make the free pizzas and just slice them up that way and give it out to the Italian immigrant, steel workers or factory guys. And that was
at
how
the bar at happy hour.
Yeah, and so everything in Chicago, to me, it's like even the hot dog, all the different toppings on that represent different parts of the city, like Greek. They're trying to get, the Greek customers and the Italian customers and the Jewish customers and the black customers. And so like every ingredient has a purpose. And there's something really fascinating about that to me. And so I kind of wanted to pay tribute to that because, people have all their different opinions on the bear. It's like we're never going to stop hearing people talk about the bear. And
on this show, you're going to stop hearing about it.
Yeah,
like
no,
that.
but I appreciate a lot of that show and like what it did. But to me, it's like there's a much deeper connection that Chicago has with food that I think doesn't. It kind of like gets lost in the fact that there's a lot of meat and people. It's very big portions, and we're not shy about that. And I just wanted to pay tribute to that because it's like you can't talk about Chicago without talking about immigrants and without talking about food. And there's a reason for that. You could say what you want about New York and LA and other food cities, but Chicago, it's like the food is so part of it. And so, going back to Maxwell Street, it was just sort of like, I've always known, like the Polish, they used to call the Polish sausage the Jewtown dog.
Yeah.
Which is kind of amazing to me because, I wouldn't have thought of that. If you would give me one right now, I wouldn't be like, oh, it's a Jewtown dog.
No, completely.
But, so I started kind of like working that on, just making little references to those things and getting Manny's in there because there used to be a lot more delis.
Yeah.
And Manny's is like the holdout and it's so great.
It's so great to this day, Manny's.
Oh.
You have to go to Manny's in Chicago.
Yeah. I had to shout it out.
My dad's spot was Ashkenaz up in Rogers Park, and I heard great stories about that growing up.
Yeah, that was my family's place too.
Yeah. You said the Blintzes are...
The Blintzes were, I guess, Barbara Walters had gone there in like the 70s, like when her career was just kind of starting out and did like a whole, she did like a whole thing on like the best Blintzes in America when the people in America cared about Blintzes.
Yeah. Bless Barbara for that move.
Oh my God.
I love that move, Barbara.
Yeah.
Let's get that on YouTube. I'll look for that link.
I want to find it so bad.
Yeah.
And then the Bears, I think, the Chicago Bears, because they used to play at Wrigley Field back in the day. I think a lot of them, my grandfather would see them all the time. And they would just chow down on hearty Jewish foods. And
I love it. Well, it's a great segue talking about the Bears playing at Wrigley. There's this beautiful scene in the book, and it's really not a major plot point, but I was reading closely as having a deep interest in Chicago food, and you tell this story, and I'm wondering, is it a real history of the birth of the Chicago hot dog? Is it an alternate history about the birth of the Chicago hot dog, but is beautifully portrayed by a character who's a butcher and then is quite entrepreneurial and decides to take some of these tube steaks up to the ballpark and open up a cart? Beautiful scene, but tell me a little bit about what inspired it.
That is my wife. You and my wife are the only two people who have gotten that so far, and I'm shocked by that because I've made sure to hand this book to so many people from Chicago and be like, please get the hot dog part. It is sort of it's a fictionalized take, but I do believe that at the very least you can't get the Chicago hot dog without the Jewish immigrants because it was Vienna. Yeah. And Vienna were two Jewish guys from Vienna. And so I was kind of playing around with it a little bit. And then, it's the idea of the Chicago hot dog came out of the Depression and the Depression dog and just put a bunch of toppings on it. And so I was like, well, maybe I go back a little further and have Solomon, the character, just be like, very 1920s idea. Be like, no, here's a healthy, it's a whole meal with vegetables and meat. You go to Grace Papaya, that's how they try to sell you on it. It's like a juice and a hot dog. Yeah. And so I could see that being a thing. The one thing I threw in, which was definitely like for the real heads, was him being like, I was offered a bunch of ketchup sauce. I call it, because they used to call it
Ketchup sauce, yeah.
Yeah, and he was like, I don't think it tastes the same, and I'm not going to. I just had to do.
No,
that.
I loved that move so much as growing up in a household where ketchup was banned from the hot dog, and just like making it be like, this ketchup doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make sense.
I think anyone who loves a Chicago dog would never put ketchup.
There are
on.
places where they won't let you. Well, they
Yeah.
just don't even have it in the city. Like they literally like, we don't have ketchup. I mean, they do.
Yeah.
If you want for fries, but if you ask, they're like, no, we don't have ketchup.
Wait, you did a little funny thing where you had was it the Wiener Circle sign change?
Yes.
Tell me about that. I just remember seeing that on social. It was so great. It was like promo for your book.
I got the opportunity to do it, and I was like, it was in April. So I was like, whatever, I'm doing this. Like, it's the Wiener Circle. If they're going to let me do this, I'm just acting on it right away. And I just had them. There was like, the Cubs were playing a few games at Wrigley, and I knew like, it's kind of like on the main thoroughfare or one of the main thoroughfares in that part of the town. And I was like, hell yeah, I'm going to put, that's how many times you get to do that in your life. And
So you had them change the lettering, the signage to promote your book.
Yep. Just said Kaplan's Pop by Jason Diamond and the sale date. And, it wasn't anything too flashy, but I was just like, well, if enough people drive past this, it'll kind of like get in their head and they'll be thinking about it. Like, what the hell is that? And, but it's just funny.
It was really clever, and I just stress that you have to buy this book. It's for so many of our listeners with deep interest in food and just a great family story. Last question about Chicago. Where are you going to go out to eat after your book event or when you're back in Chicago in September? I'd love to get your Chicago hit list.
Well, I'm trying finally. I mean, I just went back for the first time. I wrote this thing for the Wall Street Journal. And they did that thing where they're like, here's $1,000. Can you use all this in Chicago over like X amount of days? I'm like, can I use $1,000? Of course I could use, believe me. And I had like money left over. I think the most expensive thing was like, I ended up in Wicker Park and went to Dove's Luncheonette. Which
I love that place.
Yeah, I do too. But it's you can get like legit Mexican food.
Yeah.
Much, much cheaper.
Yeah.
But I was like, I'm here. I love Dove's. But I really want to try Millie's this time.
Yeah.
I've never tried it, and I've become friendly with them over Instagram on DM, and all my friends. If a person from Chicago, it's sort of like Texas. Texas and Chicago have this in common. If a person from Chicago tells you it's good, obviously everyone's got different. This is better. There was a thing about how Chicagoans like, okay, that's fine, but this is the better one. But like, I do think when like enough people say, oh yeah, that's legit. In Chicago to me about something like pizza, then I'm like, okay, it's legit. And so Millie's, that's number one on my hit list.
We had the chef on our show about a year and a half ago. I've been to Millie's several times. It's super good, man. It's for a unique style of Chicago pizza. I think it's really the one in Uptown is what I went to. I know he's got a suburban location now too, but I love the one in Uptown.
Yeah, that's probably where I'm going to end up going.
Yeah.
I can go. But likely if I can't make it, because I know they sell out fast, but Italian Village, which I'm always like a friend of mine who's the GQ style editor was like, where should I go in Chicago? I'm like, listen, you're here, go to Italian Village. It is it's like a weird red sauce place. It's very weird. And like, I love it. My family has been going there for decades.
Yeah.
And they redid like the downstairs bar. So it's like, kind of like, cool. I somebody was telling me like 1970s Italian disco-y vibe, and
I love it.
I can't see that, but I'm gonna check it out because I love that place.
Yeah.
So that's likely where I'll end up.
Yeah.
If I can't get to Millie's before or after.
I love it, Jason. Well, pick up Kaplan's Plot again. It's a terrific novel. Jason, I can't let you go without asking you about the Ramones. You're writing a book about the Ramones. It's your follow-up to this amazing gangster novel is a book about the Ramones?
Yeah, I've always, my first two books were nonfiction. I co-wrote the guidebook about New York with my friend New York Nico. And, I always want to be able to kind of do both nonfiction and fiction. And I didn't really want to do any like heady sort of like essay collection sort of thing or try to be heady. I'm not very heady, but I was like, they're my favorite band of all time. And I think going to Queens as much as I was for the Nico book, I'm like, God, I love Queens. And it's like, cause my dad grew up in Brooklyn and the Bronx, so I have like some connection to those places. But Queens is kind of foreign to me. And every time I go there, I'm like, I just want a reason to be in Queens. And I also just have always felt like the Ramones have been sort of underrepresented for such an important band because they're always kind of just placed in this context of like CBGBs, punk.
It's cartoonish almost. They are literal cartoons of an era, and I cannot wait to see what you unpack there. How's it going with the writing?
So far, it's good. I mean, right now I'm still finishing up all the research
Yeah.
that I'm putting into it, but I have a very like specific way I want to tell the story, and I think that's kind of the goal is telling a story because I think there's plenty of oral histories and there's plenty of secondhand accounts and this and that. And they're all dead, unfortunately. The original members.
Yeah.
Marky's still around. I see him driving his Cadillac in my neighborhood, which is crazy. But I really want to tell a story, and I want to put them in a different light.
So it's like a firm third person approach.
For sure.
I love this.
Yeah, it's going to be something. I mean, like 1 out of 5 music books, like books about music, are I like. Like most of them are. I'm like, you can barely write. Why are you doing this?
Yeah. Can we talk about our band could be your life?
Oh, I mean, but that's an oral history. No, wait, is that? I haven't
No,
read it.
that one.
No, yeah, no,
that's Ezerad, right?
Yeah.
That's Ezerad's.
That's a great one.
Yeah, vignettes of like punk and post.
It's like Mudhoney and Beat Happening and Fugazi and all the indie. So yeah, that's a great book. And one of my I think Positively 4th Street, the Dylan Baez book. I loved how he did that. I just read Brian Anderson's book about the Grateful Dead's Wall of Sound.
Oh, cool.
And I'm like, this was an interesting way to do this. I like this because it's, the Grateful Dead have been written about 1,001 times, and he did something different.
How do you, and there's been plenty written about the Ramones as well, how do you think about the story in a new way as you're outlining it and researching it?
It's all about the 70s.
Cool.
It's all about the 70s. I mean, there's going to be like the kind of like their early days in Queens and growing up. But to me, the book is about how they represent this sort of sea change in America and, Western culture in general. And they're kind of like looked at as this like kind of silly couple of dummies who could barely play their instruments. But meanwhile, they ended up influencing everything. Their songs are actually brilliant. I don't care what anybody says. Like, oh, no, they're not. I'm like, dude, if you like the Beach Boys, if you like the Ronettes, you should understand why the Ramones are so wonderful. And there's just so much more to them than just, 3 chords and punk rock. It's just they were at the forefront of something much bigger, and everything that came after them was influenced by that.
Well, of course, and they were like watching them perform in New York. I mean, is there drama to unpack as well within the members, the original members?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there was always, between Joey and Johnny, there was always a lot of back and forth.
Yeah.
I think, that's pretty well known that like Johnny was sort of the tough guy and Joey was like the sweetheart and Dee Dee was the junkie, and Tommy I always think is kind of the fascinating one because I think he was born in Eastern Europe right after the war. His parents were Holocaust survivors. He was more of like the business sense guy, and I think it's kind of interesting that he got out of it because he's like, I don't think this is. I'll hang out with you guys and I'll work with you guys and produce you, but I'm done drumming.
Drumming and more like the behind the scenes music industry guy. I love that narrative. I can't let you go and hear about Kaplan's plot on screen.
Oh yeah.
Is this? I mean, I know Hollywood is crazy, and doing a period drama is expensive and difficult to make. But is there anything in motion with TV?
There's things. But like I was talking to a friend last night about this. It's like I don't like to say we're of this generation, but there is something really funny about people who came up in media around the time we did. We saw this, it happened in like the 20s and 30s where you saw like all these writers move out west, like Fitzgerald, Faulkner, they all, Dashiell Hammett, they all moved out west because they were going to be rich and famous by writing movies, and most of them crashed and burned on their own because, they were all alcoholics. But a lot of the people I know who moved out to LA in the last like decade with the same hopes that this is going to be much better than writing, $300
listicles.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
They've been screwed over and like countless times by that industry. And a lot of my friends have moved back to New York and, and so I've like watched what they've had to go through, and I've already been involved in some of the process of like with the stuff I've written and taking meetings when I'm out there before Kaplan's Plot. And I'm like, yeah, this isn't for me. So I'm gonna be involved somehow when it happens, but I don't really want to. I just finished watching The Studio recently, and I'm like, this is a nightmare.
Yeah. No reason to leave Brooklyn, to be honest.
I don't want to.
For creative endeavors, at least.
I came to Manhattan today, and I'm like, the city.
The city's looking nice right now.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It's looking nice. I love that perspective. It's really, really articulate, and you are so core about writing books and journalism and of course having a really good Instagram too. I think like if you try to extend and try to do TV and film, it's just like you start going nuts.
And I mean, I'm a writer. That's all I ever wanted to be.
Yep.
And that's all I want to do. Let me add to that. I love being a dad.
Yeah.
I love being a parent. I'm deadly serious about that. It's like I'm obsessed with parenting. It's like it's fun. But and that's the thing. It's like I say it's fun, and writing is fun. So all I want to do is have fun. And I look at the process of like working in a Hollywood setting. I'm like, this doesn't look fun. So I don't know if it's for me, but if somebody else wants to tackle it, I'm more than willing to lend my. Yeah. We'll see.
Those on the West Coast who are listening to the show, pick up the book. There's some moves there for TV and film. Jason Diamond, this has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining This Is Taste.
I'm so appreciative of this. I love coming on this, so thank you, Matt.
This Is Taste is hosted and produced by Eliza Barbanel and me, Matt Rodbard. The show is edited by lead producer Clayton Gumbert and supervised by Pat Stango, Director of Media Production and Development at Penguin Random House. Thanks to Shalia Harris and the production team at Penguin Random House. Theme music by Steve Rydell. Logo and guest illustrations by Ellie Skurzat. Visit Taste online at tastecooking.com and make sure to subscribe to our newsletter to keep updated on all cool things in the world of taste.